Hello and welcome to another Sprues and Brews video. Today we're looking at the Crusade system for the 10th edition of Warhammer 40,000 and in particular the Leviathan War Crusade Supplement that's contained within the core book in the Leviathan box. So first of all I want to say a massive thanks to Games Workshop for sending us an early copy of Leviathan to unbox and review on the site. We've had quite a bit of content up on the site already about this. We have got a full video unboxing and review which you can find on YouTube and I'll link in the description. We've also got a full deep dive into the rules over on spruesandbrews.com as well, and this video will be accompanied by a full article on the website as well, digging into the Crusade content and what it's like. So in the previous edition of the game, Crusade was one of the things that excited us the most. Here at Sprues and Brews, we play tournaments, but we're not by any means kind of high-end tournament players, but we really enjoy playing games of Warhammer. And one of the things that we found in the previous edition with Crusade is that it lets you build a narrative, get a group of friends together, kind of explore the armies developing, levelling up, all the various conflicts that kick off between that, and being able to kind of remember that and chronicle that in your Crusade force. So yeah, when the 10th edition rolled around, one of the things we're really interested in is seeing what had changed, what's new, and is Crusade still a thing? Thankfully it is, because within the new Leviathan core rulebook in the Leviathan box, you get the full Tyrannic War Supplement. So this is going to be a Crusade supplement that's going to be available later after the release of Leviathan, but if you do pick up the box, you get the full expansion within your rulebook, which is really cool, especially if you like narrative play. So what is this book? Essentially it's closer in tone, I think, to kind of the Broken Realms and the Arcs of Omen, but combined with the kind of content we got in the old Crusade supplements. I found the previous Crusade supplements, while they had gaming content in there, it was light on the narrative side. And then normally what would happen at the same time, we'd get like a source book, which would have some narrative material in there, and then rules and expansions for various armies. So it seems this time round, they're kind of amalgamating those two books into something that's got a lot of lore and information about a conflict within the galaxy, and then a load of kind of Crusade specific content, and then obviously missions and different things you can unlock and all the cool stuff that we've come to love from Crusade. So yeah, really excited to see how this plays out. So like I say, the book is chock filled with lore, and I believe this is going to be the way that they go about kind of telling the continuing story in the game. So very often we've got to wait until the end of an edition, for example, in order to kind of get that branching storyline between the two editions. But this book is absolutely filled with the kind of the developments of the Tyranid invasion. There's basically two hive tendrils that are striking towards the other side of the galaxy, and obviously that's a threat towards terror potentially. So yeah, I don't want to go too much into the lore here because I know people will want to read it themselves, but it has got, I think it's about 40 pages of lore, and then kind of maps and information and all the various forces involved. So yeah, really excited to see kind of maybe every couple of codexes that get released this edition, whether they bring out a book like this and have a new conflict. It also means that the whole focus of the edition doesn't have to be just on the Tyranids as well. We saw bits of the Necrons at the start of last edition, and then they kind of faded into the background and we saw more of kind of Abaddon's attack. And I reckon we'll see the same here, where we'll start off with a focus on the Tyranids, but then maybe we flip to another part of the galaxy, or somewhere that isn't in the midst of that Tyranid invasion, and we learn of another conflict or another storyline starts picking up. So there's lots of cool stuff we can do with this. There's a few hints of new Tyranid stuff in there as well. Tyranid psychic warrior beasts, which should be cool to see. And we've got this big, spooky looking glowing Tyranid vessel that's hurtling towards a certain system. So yeah, it's really, really cool. I like that we can kind of dig into the lore in here and learn what's happening. It's interesting that that's within the Tyrannic War Supplement as well, rather than really being detailed in the kind of the core book. So that again hints that maybe we'll see more of a focus on telling those narrative beats through these narrative books. And then, of course, they let you recreate those battles using your forces with your friends, so that's really nice to see. Now, unfortunately, I have scoured these pages. There's no hints of any kind of future models hiding in there, which there sometimes is, which is a shame. But I'm sure the Space Marines and the Tyranids will be getting new stuff when we get to their individual codex releases. So let's have a look at how Crusade works within 10th edition. Now, it's not a million miles away from the previous one, but there are some important changes that I want to kind of dig into here. So first of all, power level is completely gone. Both match play and narrative play both use points. I think that's a good thing. While it was easier to build forces with power, you'll see when kind of points and details are released later on, it is easier to build armies now with points, especially in Crusade, where really you've got your list of various units, and then from them you can structure your army. So you might have a few situations where a few points short because you can't, you know, add in extra bits here or there. But again, in a Crusade, really, it's not going to matter at all. So yeah, don't worry about that too much. You start with an order of battle, and it's got 1,000 points worth of kind of units on there. You have a sheet for each unit, same as before. It does say in here, they don't necessarily all have to have the same faction keyword, but obviously that makes kind of army list building easier. So nothing to stop you starting a Crusade force with 1,000 points of Astra Militarum, and then adding 1,000 points of Space Marines. And then you've got two different armies that you can pull your force from. And obviously the downside of that is you can't pull a big 2,000 army combined with them, but it gives you some variety. So if you've got a long running Crusade, and rather than start a new Crusade roster, you just want to add kind of another mini army into there, that's something you can do. And obviously with stuff like the Imperial Agents and Chaos Knights and things that can slot into other armies, that makes it quite easy to do that too. So yeah, so that is all very much the same as in the previous version. You start with 5 requisition points and you use those to buy upgrades and stuff. Now, the way requisition things have changed makes it quite a bit different from the previous edition. Often you'll find that you had too much requisition to really do anything with, and now there's certain things that cost quite a bit more. In particular, when you upgrade your units and stuff, it's going to cost you a lot more requisition to manage them. Your units still gain experience when you're playing your battles, so everyone that takes part in a battle gets 1 XP, doesn't matter if they survive the battle or not. Again, for every 3 units that a unit kills, they get 1 XP, and again at the end of the battle you still pick a kind of MVP, Marked for Greatness player, and they get 3 XP too. Now, your epic heroes, so your Abaddons, your Gullimans, those kind of people don't gain any experience. Fortifications don't gain any experience, and swarms don't. So again, all this quite similar to the previous edition of the game. Crusade cards we have a look at there. Now, you spend your requisition points to do a number of different things. The cap has now changed to 10. I believe in the previous edition of the game it was only 5, so that gives you a bit more kind of wiggle room for saving up some of those requisition points if you want to use them for something else as you go through the game. And while a lot of these are the same, some of them have changed quite a little bit. So you can increase your supply limit in 200 point increments for 1 requisition point. So for example, if you wanted to off the bat use all 5 of your starting requisition point, you can immediately write a 2,000 point army, and from that you can draw your Crusade armies, so that's handy to do. Now you can select renowned heroes. This is similar to how back in Crusade you'd spend requisition in order to give someone a warlord trait or an artifact. Now obviously the concept of that is a little bit different in 10th edition. We've now got enhancements, and basically this cost is exponential. So the first hero that you give one to, it costs 1 requisition point. The second hero that you give one to, it costs 2, and then 3 for the third hero that you give it to. It's worth noting you can only do this either when they're added to the list or when they gain a level. So again, that makes it a little bit more expensive to tool out everyone with all these various artifacts and enhancements and stuff. It's going to give you more things to spend your requisition on, and also make it harder to get over the top ridiculous armies, which I never think was the intent. It was always more about telling the story. A new thing that's been added is legendary veterans. So your heroes can level up all through the ranks, but your non-character units can't do that. They can only get to a certain point, and then if they want to gain any more experience, you've got to spend 3 requisition points to basically limit break them to allow them to gain additional levels. So again, that stops you from just, I guess, farming experience and having all your entire army for your Crusade force fully tooled out with all the upgrades. It is going to cost you requisition to do that, and in order to do that, you're going to need to play a few, games in order to unlock all that. I think that's a really, really good change. It means that you're going to be leveling up your guys over a longer period, no longer after like game 1, all your guys are immediately amazing, which, it's, again, not really the intent. I think it's always been the case that you'd have this army, then over the course of the edition they'd level up and get their abilities. We've been to some events in Warhammer World for Crusade, and we found that sometimes the kind of leveling up ramp is a little bit too quick, and then the kind of the balance between those armies that are fully powered up and those that aren't gets a little bit wider. So with this, with that cost in order to kind of level them up to the high levels, it means that there's kind of this additional resource as well as the experience, which is good. You can still rearm and resupply for 1 requisition point. That's the same. You can kind of swap out the loading if you want. And you've got repair and recuperate, where you can remove battle scars. Now the difference here is that, again, that gets more expensive based on kind of how many battle honours that you've got. So, for example, if you wanted to, base it's 1, and then for every battle honour they've got, it costs an additional requisition. So if you've got somebody with 2 battle honours and a battle scar, and you want to get rid of that battle scar, it will cost you 1 base, plus 2 requisition points for the 2 battle honour he's got, for a total of 3. So again, that makes getting rid of battle scars much more expensive, and we've always kind of house ruled in our games that we'd never really get rid of battle scars, and I think in the previous edition of the game it was quite cheap and easy to do so, to the point where it didn't really have any impact. Where now, because it costs so much, you're kind of incentivized to keep those battle scars. That's part of your character trait. That's kind of something that you build into the story, that, okay, they're not ideal, they haven't got their full kind of strength, but that's something you do the story. Maybe your commander's lost his eye in combat, but you play with that and you build that into your narrative, and I think that's part of the kind of the storytelling for Crusade. So I like that change. Similarly, fresh recruits, in order to add additional models to the unit, if they've got battle honours already, it's going to cost you more. So you can't take a minimum strength unit, level them up, and then add a load of guys to it. It's now going to cost you quite a bit of requisition points if you want to do that, again, making you have to pay something in order to get that benefit. So I think that's a really good change too. So we've still got the concept of battle traits and ranks that you go through. Similar situation where you gain experience and you go through them. Like we mentioned before, that only characters can get to heroic or legendary without spending the requisition to kind of earn the right to become legendary units, which is pretty cool. Other than that, pretty much the same as how it worked before. You get new upgrades and modifiers and relics and things when you go up those ranks, so that works the same. And still, again, you get to roll the dice and either go with that result or pick one that is suitably fitting for your battle. So that's, again, something that we've always done. You and your opponent sit down and kind of select which one you want to do. Now, if you are rolling it kind of randomly, you can, it does suggest rolling 2 dice and pick the one that you want, which gives you a little bit more freedom in selecting the one that you do. But I always feel that in this kind of thing, you and your opponent kind of talk through it and pick what suits best based on the battle. And similar for the battle scars as well. I'd always kind of theme it around how the battle's gone, what's happened, why have they got that battle scar. Now this again works in a similar way to the previous edition. So if a unit is slain during the battle, at the end of the game you roll a dice. On a 2+ they're fine, but on a 1 something bad has happened. Now previously you could just lose some requisition points and ignore that. Where now, if you want to ignore the battle scar, you have to give up one of your battle honours. So again, there is a big cost with just ignoring that. And 9 times out of 10, I think most people now will take the battle scar because, again, you don't really want to lose that battle honour because they're pretty cool. But, you know, you're going to have to roll with the punches and take the battle scar. Which, again, fits with the story. You can write something kind of nice and thematic around that. So I really like that side of things. So the way you put together a Crusade army is pretty much the same. You pick a points level, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000. You agree that with your opponent based on what forces you've got available in your roster. So you might have 2,000 points in your roster and you fight Jay, who's only got 1,000 points. Awesome, you can play a 1,000-point game. You might then fight Dave, who's got a 3,000 point force. Obviously you've only got 2,000, so there's two of you can decide whether you play a 1,000-point game or a 2,000-point game. Nice and easy. You then pick your army faction, because again, you might have multiple factions within your kind of roster, and then from that, you select your detachment rules, you select your units and your warlord, and build your army. And it's worth noting that you can have a different warlord in each game if you wanted. That represents that for this particular mission, this character is leading the battle rather than, you know, the character that led it last time. So you're not locked into a single warlord on the whole kind of Crusade roster, which is cool. And again, you can tell different stories with different forces splintering out, which I think is a pretty nice touch. So then we go into the Tyrannic War Supplement, and the way this works is basically it adds a lot of flavour in your battle traits and battle scars and upgrade trees that are themed around the battle that we've seen in the narrative at the start of the book, which is really, really cool. So you've got loads of battle traits for units, for vehicles, for infantry, for mounted units, and striding behemoths, which are basically monsters or walkers. So again, you've got a lot of different things here that you can roll on, or again, pick with the opponent which one you get based on how the battle's gone. You also get a list of unique relics, including cool stuff like vortex grenades. Again, these work much the same way. When you kind of gain a rank, you can choose to get one of these, which is pretty cool. What is new that's been added is the Tyrannic War Veteran requisition. Basically, you can select a blooded unit, spend requisition points, and you can make them Tyrannic War Veterans. So these represent the troops that are fighting within the Tyrannic War, and again, it's a nice way of tying your Crusade force to this narrative. You could have a couple of units in your army that become Tyrannic War Veterans, and then they will persist as Tyrannic War Veterans in the next Crusade book that comes out, and then maybe one of the units from your next book specialises in something from that book. So the way this works is basically, if you think kind of, I guess, role-playing game upgrade tree, it's 2 special trees, one for monster hunters, one for striding behemoths, and you basically choose from a series of upgrades as you work through and fully unlock your character. Now to do that, you have to get, you have to kind of unlock them as you go by killing things. So if you destroy an enemy unit, you add 1 to the Tyrannic War tally, and if you destroy a striding behemoth, you add 3 to the Tyrannic War tally. And then if you destroy something Titanic, you add 6 to the tally. Every time you get 10, it resets to 0, and you get to pick an upgrade. So there's 2 trees. Monster Hunters are basically your kind of like infantry and cavalry off the top of my head. And then you've got Striding Behemoths, which are your monsters and vehicles, I believe. Monsters and walkers. You lock into one of those 2 trees when you start the Tyrannic War kind of campaign bit, when you spend that requisition point, and then each time you get those 10 points, you get to pick the next ability in the tree. And some of them are branching, so there's no way to get all of these. So for example, for Monster Hunters, you start off as a Giant Slayer, so you can reroll hits of 1 if you're targeting a monster or a vehicle, and then the next time you get 10 points in the tally, you get to choose whether you go Painful Lessons, where you worsen the incoming AP of monsters or vehicles shooting you, or Indomitable Defiance, where you automatically pass battle shock tests if you're in engagement range with a monster or vehicle. And it goes on like that with a couple of upgrades for each tree. I really like this and hope that we see this expanded in future Crusade supplements, because I think this is going to be great fun and a nice way of adding a lot of flavour to your armies. We then get the full Crusade rules, and this again is quite similar to the previous edition of the game. You work out your points, you generate the map, and then you select your agendas. This works pretty much the same way as it did in the previous games. The agendas are basically ways of various kind of goals that you're trying to do with your army. Now what is new is Crusade Blessings. Now previously, the way that Crusade was balanced was that with the difference in Crusade score, you got command points, which is all well and good, but it didn't really give a massive advantage to an army when a fully tooled up Crusade force could be considerably stronger than you. So in order to get around that, they have rejigged how this works. And you'll see here, as the difference in Crusade points goes up, you get to pick a number of different blessings. So for example, if your opponent's Crusade points are 5 higher than yours, you get 1 blessing. Whereas if it was 20 higher, you get 4 blessings, and the blessings are really good. These are a number of different buffs and abilities that you can give to your units in order to give them a bit of a fighting chance against a much stronger force. So for example, prepared positions, until the start of the second battle round, your entire army gets the benefits of cover to basically represent that they're hunkered in. High strategy, you start the battle with 2 CP. Secret orders, you pick an additional agenda. What doesn't kill you, at the end of the battle you get an additional XP for every unit that isn't killed. Critical strike, you get +1 to charge rolls. Outmaneuver, at the start of the first battle round you can pick 3 units and they can move 6 inches using the scout rule. Dedication to the cause, once per turn you can re-roll 1 battle shock test. And then there's a couple of unique ones based on the campaign. So for the Tyranids, you've got Mass Devouring. At the end of the battle, if at least half of your opponent's units are destroyed or below half strength, you gain 1 requisition point, and if you destroy them all or they're below half strength, you get 3 requisition points. And then if you're not Tyranids, you can get access to Hellfire Shells. You select a unit, and they can basically re-roll the wounds against monster or vehicle, so that's pretty cool. I really like that, and it is going to make differences between kind of high power armies and low power armies a little bit more balanced, because the underdog gets some of those bonuses. Similarly, we get a list of agendas. This works pretty much how it did. There's a specific goal that you're trying to do, and it rewards you with experience points. So it's like a secondary that doesn't really impact the battle, but it does gain you extra experience, which is pretty cool. We then get rules for a full Tyrannic War campaign, and this can have up to 3 teams in it. So the Defenders, who traditionally would be the Imperium, the Invaders, who'd be the Tyranids, but obviously the Forces of Chaos could represent that. And then you've got the Raiders, who are more like the Drukhari, maybe the Orcs causing havoc, and all those different forces fighting the campaign. It's, you know, if you've played other campaigns from Games Workshop before, essentially this is split into a number of campaign weeks, and based on the point of the armies, the different teams, that kind of determines who succeeds in the campaign. So pretty fun, a nice way of tying all the missions together. And then obviously we get a big list of loads of different scenarios, and again this is probably something that we'll see expanded out throughout the kind of life of this edition. Now what is cool, there are a couple of missions in here that are on particularly big boards. So I think it's these two, Fire from the Skies and Myths and Monsters, are on, I think it's 7 foot by 4 foot boards, so big old boards using 3,000 point armies. Yeah, kind of say the big bridge table at Warhammer World, you want to do a big Crusade game on there, you could use one of these. So again, you get a nice range of missions that can be played on different table sizes. So yeah, really happy with how Crusade looks in this edition. I've always enjoyed it, and I think it's the best part of 9th edition. Really excited for us to all kind of pool our armies together and play through a big Crusade and, you know, roll with the punches. You might get some battle scars, but that adds to the story and the narrative, and it's going to add some cool twists and turns when your character maybe gets revenge on the person that caused that battle scar to them. And then maybe, from a narrative point of view, you then decide to spend the requisition to show that he's avenged, you know, the crime that's been done against him, and then manages to heal it. Lots of fun stuff. I hope that these books are fairly regular throughout the edition, and it's really cool that you get the first one included within the Leviathan book as well. I don't know when it's out separately. I guess I'd say probably when the Tyranids and Space Marines get released with their codexes, but at the minute this is going to be the first place you can get it, so that's really cool. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed that look at the Crusade contents in the Leviathan book. Like I said earlier, we've got loads of content over on spruesandbrews.com with full write-ups of the Crusade content, of the core rules, of the kind of the unboxing and all the miniatures. We've also painted up all the miniatures too, and there's loads more 40k content coming over the course of June, so stay tuned because there's lots of exciting stuff on the way. But yeah, if you enjoyed this, why not give us a follow? We've got loads of kind of unboxings and reviews and painting videos and all sorts of stuff that comes up on here. We're going to be doing some battle reports on Crusade 2 because we're really keen to do that, and we're probably going to focus pretty much exclusively on Crusade content on the channel. I think there's a lot of sites that do match play. Crusade's probably going to be our focus for this edition, so if you do enjoy Crusade, stick around. We've also got an affiliate link for Element Games, so if you do want to order your box through them, that is much appreciated. We get a little bit of kickback that helps with all the kind of running costs of the site. So yeah, hope you have a great weekend, hope you enjoy 10th edition, and we'll see you all soon.